Hello, everybody. I hope you've been enjoying Of Mice and Men. This week, we're going to wrap up our reading of this little novella. We should have been following the themes of friendship, responsibility for others, poverty and exploitation of the lower class, sacrifice, and the American dream. Next week, I'm going to have you look at what our author was trying to tell us about those themes, so you definitely want to pay close attention as you read and annotate chapters 5 and 6. The original title of the book was Something That Happened, and I can tell you this week, something's definitely going to happen. So as usual, our author is going to start us off with the setting, but we're looking for any of the theme development as well as character development. One end of the green barn was piled high with new hay, and over the pile hung the 4-talon Jackson fork suspended from its pulley. The hay came down like a mountain slope to the other end of the barn, and there was a level place as yet unfilled with the new crop. At the sides, the feeding racks were visible, and between the slats, the heads of horses could be seen. So I don't really have anything to annotate here because that's just a description of the setting, but it does give me a more peaceful feeling than we've seen in the last couple of chapters. I'm just going to add a little note here about a peaceful mood. It was Sunday afternoon. The resting horses nibbled the remaining wisps of hay, and they stomped their feet, and they bit the wood of the mangers and rattled the halter chains. The afternoon sun sliced in through the cracks of the barn walls and lay in bright lines on the hay. There was the buzz of flies in the air, the lazy afternoon humming. From outside came the clang of horseshoes on the playing peg and the shouts of men, playing, encouraging, jeering. But in the barn, it was quiet and humming and lazy and warm. I'm definitely going to highlight this right here. It just kind of tells me something's coming. It's very quiet, and I know I'm coming to the end of a novel, so I think something's going to happen soon. Only Lenny was in the barn, and Lenny sat in the hay beside a packing case under a manger in the end of the barn that had not been filled with hay. Lenny sat in the hay and looked at a little dead puppy that lay in front of him. I'm going to change my highlight color here and highlight this in red or pink. Lenny looked at it for a long time, and he put out his huge hand and stroked it clear from one end to the other. And Lenny said softly to the puppy, "Why do you got to get killed? You ain't so little as mice. I didn't bounce you hard." He bent the pup's head and looked in its face, and he said to it, "Now maybe George ain't going to let me tend no rabbits if he finds out you got killed." So there's a couple of things here. I'm going to keep this in pink, "You ain't so little as mice," because this kind of throws us back to chapter 1 where Lenny was petting a dead mouse. And we also have a development of the theme of the American dream. Now George ain't going to let me tend no rabbits if he finds out you got killed. Lenny and George have the dream of owning their own ranch, and Lenny just wants to tend them rabbits. And in this case, now that he's killed the puppy, he's worried that George isn't going to let him tend the rabbits, because if he can't take care of a puppy, he definitely cannot take care of rabbits. So Lenny is worried that his dreams are crushed when he finds this dead puppy or killed this puppy. So I would highlight in blue and kind of keep going with the American dream there. And then just keep annotating, like, what do you think is happening here and how does that contribute to the author's message? Is he telling us at this point that dreams can come true, or is he showing us that maybe dreams are more complex than we thought? He scooped a little hollow and laid the puppy in it and covered it over with hay out of sight, but he continued to stare at the mound he had made. He said, "This ain't no bad thing, like I gotta go hide in the brush. Oh no, this ain't. I'll tell George I found it dead." He unburied the puppy and inspected it, and he stroked it from ears to tail. He went on sorrowfully, "But he'll know. George always knows. He'll say, 'You done it. Don't try to put nothing over on me.' And he'll say, 'Now, just for that, you don't get to tend no rabbits.'" Suddenly his anger rose. "God damn you," he cried. "Why do you gotta get killed? You ain't so little as mice." He picked up the pup and hurled it from him. He turned his back on it. He sat bent over his knees and he whispered, "Now I won't get to tend the rabbits. Now he won't let me." He rocked himself back and forth in his sorrow. So here I see a little bit of development in Lenny's character. We haven't really seen him too angry. Even when he fought Curly in chapter 3 or 4, he wasn't angry. He was more afraid. So right now we're seeing some emotions from Lenny that we haven't seen before. Let's move this. New development For Lenny, anger. And now we also have some sorrow. He's rocking himself back and forth. So that's definitely something that's coming out in him where he's trying to comfort himself by rocking back and forth. So you can see my annotations aren't complete sentences. They're just thoughts or partial thoughts. And it's just giving me an idea of what I was thinking as I read. From the outside came the clang of the horseshoes on the iron stake and then a little chorus of cries. Lenny got up and brought the puppy back and laid it on the hay and sat down. He stroked the pup again. You wasn't big enough, he said. They told me and they told me you wasn't. I didn't know you'd get killed so easy. He worked his fingers on the pump's limp ear. Maybe George won't care, he said. This here little bleep, bleep, bleep wasn't nothing to do to George. Curly's wife came around the end of the last stall. She came very quietly so that Lenny didn't see her. She wore her bright cotton dress and the mules with the red ostrich feathers. Her face was made up and the little sausage curls were all in place. She was quite near to him before Lenny looked up and saw her. And I'm going to have to point out here, and again, I'm going to put it in a different color. What is Lenny's wife doing wearing a bright dress and mules? Those are little heels with red ostrich feathers on them, and her face was all made up and little sausage curls were all in place. So she's very dressed up to be on the ranch, maybe out of place on the ranch. Oops, Curly's wife, not Lenny's. This comes right after Lenny is upset about the puppy's death. No one else is around now. Trouble is coming. At least that's what I'm thinking right now. So again, you can see my annotations are just my thoughts as I move through. I've kind of color-coded things. You need to do what makes sense to you. And you'll definitely be using these annotations next week as we look back at the way that the author developed the themes throughout the course of the text. I hope you enjoy the end of the novel. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to send me a message or see me in room 203.